Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's have a look at how we can total or sum or add up the columns and the rows of matrices using a multiplication. Let's have a look at the first one here. If I write down that this is a 1 row by 4 columns, of course this is a 1 by 4. That's a 1 by 4, whereas this one is a 4 by 2. So what do I look at with this all the time? If they're the same, it means that the calculation will work, but we end up with a 1 by 2. So how do we draw a 1 by 2? There's a 1, and we go across 2. So let's have a look at what we've got. So what it means, we pour those 4, and I can put the pour in, let's pour those 4. Pour those 4 onto those 4. That means the 1 will match up with a 10, the 1 will match up with a 20, the 1 will match up with a 30, the 1 will match up with 40. You can see the 4 multiplied by the 4. So the 4 columns of the first one match up with the 4 rows of the second. So the 4 columns of the first one match up with the 4 rows of the second one. Let's have a look at it. That'll be a 10 plus a 20 plus a 30 plus a 40. So we've just totaled the first column and we get 100. Second column, now it'll be 1 of the 20, so 1 will match up with a 20, 1 will match 10, 1 with a 30, 1 with a 10. So 1 of each of those, and then add them up. That's what matrix multiplication does. It's that plus that plus that plus that. So that's 30, 60, 70. So there is the sum of the columns, not the rows. So this is the sum of the columns. Now, let's go over to the next one. Made it a 3 instead of a 4. So this one is a 2 rows by 3 columns. So that's a 2 by 3. This one is a 3 by 1. I don't like putting all the numbers on, it clutters it too much, but that's okay. So 3 by 1. So it works. But this time, instead of being a 1 by 2, we're going to have a 2 by 1. And some of you are probably wondering why I wrote this one at the front and I wrote that one at the back. But this one, it's the 3 columns match the 3 rows. So we'll have a look at the 2 cases where they don't work in a moment. Let's have a look at this one here. So I pour the 5 onto the 1, the 10 onto the 1, and the 20 onto the 1. So it's 1 of those plus 1 of those plus 1 of those, so that's 35. Remember, this is the first row, so it goes in the first row on the answer. Now we'll do the second row, which goes on the second row of the answer. So it's 4 of those, 3 of those, and 2 of those, where it's easy to think 1 of the 4, 1 of the 3, 1 of the 2, and you've got 9. So we've ended up with a 2 by 1. So we know that was going to end up with a 2 by 1. So what happens if we put the 1s there? I put it at the back, but instead of putting it as a column, I put it as a row. Instead of putting it vertically, I put it horizontally. So this is a 2 by a 3, and this is a 1 by a 3, and you can see it doesn't work. You can talk about the number of columns of the first, does not match up the number of rows for the second. Of course, if I pour the 5 onto the 1, what do I pour the 10 onto? There's nothing to pour it onto. And then of course the same for the 20. So that one doesn't work. So you can just say, doesn't work. This one here, you've got a 3 by 1, so there's 3 rows by 1 column, and then 1 column. And then you've got 2 rows by 3 columns, and then go to multiply it again. This tells you it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? So if I pour the 1 onto the 5, what do I pour onto the 4? So there's nothing to match it up, and it can't work. So when you're using these rows and columns of 1s, you've always got to be careful about where do I place them. If you're enjoying them, please just let your friends know.